Hi, you're listening to God Goes in Government, a weekly conversation with Senator Kim Jackson, where she'll reflect on her journey as an Episcopal priest, farmer, first-time state legislator, and much more. I'm your host, Sharitha J., and I'm honored to share this space with you. Let's begin. Hey, it's your girl, Sharitha J., and I'm here with your favorite state senator, Senator Kim Jackson. Hey, Senator Jackson, how are you doing?
Hey girl, I am at home, and so it's hard to not be good when I'm at home.
Okay. Well, it's good to catch you, outside of the Gold Dome, but I hear it's been a very eventful week.
Sharita, it's been wild. I don't even know where to really necessarily begin because
Mm.
I feel like every day has been like 5 days compressed into one day. So it's been a lot. It's been a lot on the policy side. It's been a lot emotionally, politically, like I don't know, psychologically, all the words. Spiritually, it's been a lot.
Well, we're getting towards the end of session, so all of this makes sense, what you're saying. But why don't you bring us in? Tell us now that you're in the comfort of your home. Do you mind bringing some of that energy in to update us about what's been taking place?
Yeah, so maybe we'll start with at the top with what's happening with SB 140.
Yeah.
So SB 140 is the bill that does not allow children who are trans or children of trans experience to receive gender affirming care by way of hormone replacement therapy and surgeries. That bill passed out of the Senate, as we've talked about before. We heard a bit of my speech from that. It went to the House. It went through House committee like on a Wednesday, and it was on the floor of the House on Thursday. I mean, extraordinarily fast. Like that does not normally
Mm.
happen. Like it was really rammed through. And so on Thursday, I can just tell you my day from Thursday. Thursday morning, I wake up. I'm like, oh, we don't go into session until 1 o'clock. So on the Senate side, and it was Jeans Day, so I'm like, this is gonna be good. Like it's a chill start. Start my morning at 9 o'clock on Political Rewind, which I haven't been on Political Rewind in quite some time. So it was really, I felt like a blessing to be back on. I do Political Rewind 9 to 10. I start getting text messages at like 9:45. Kim, do you know they've called the bill? The bill's gonna be heard on the floor. And I'm at home because I'm like, I don't need to be there until 1. But they're talking about this bill's gonna be heard in the House right now. So I like finished Political Rewind. I turn the hearing on. It's not a hearing, right? It's actually like on the floor. So I turn it on my cell phone and hop in the truck. I hadn't fed the animals or anything. Like I had to text Trina later on and be like, yo, I'm sorry. My bad. Um, so I rushed down, get to the Capitol. I didn't break any laws. Get to the Capitol while they're in debate. Go on the floor so I can, so show support to my colleagues who are on the floor. Remember, it's Jeans Day in the Senate, so I go on the floor in my jeans. I get kicked off the floor because I'm wearing jeans, and I say, "But like, it's Jeans Day," and they're like, "That's in the Senate, not in the House." Yeah, dudes kick me off the floor.
That
Yeah,
seems very strategic. That's all I'm saying.
it's it's just petty. It's just petty as shit. Like, because I will say, thankfully, there was a Republican who also was there with me. Jason and I actually took a picture together. Jason Anavitarti and I took a picture of being kicked out together. Because I think if he hadn't been there, I would have been suspicious. But they kick us both off the floor. The computers, like the TVs that are usually like showing what's happening and playing the sound they're broken. So nobody in the hallways, nobody in the atrium can hear the debate. That, conspiracy theorists are like, that seems on purpose. But
Okay, so
which,
because I just
go
want
ahead.
to, this is again coincidence, possibly, possibly. I'll be the conspiracy theorist, so you don't have to be. But I am remembering this time in session last year, especially on Sine Die, which we are approaching, that similar strategies were used to just kind of push things through last minute, if you will. So I mean, I don't want to give the Republicans too much credit on thinking ahead in this way, but to on Jeans Day, just so happens that where you all cannot enter the house side, right? You can't enter the floor. It just seems it's giving me beyond petty vibes at this point. It's just very strategic.
Fair
That's all
enough,
I'm saying.
fair enough. So, because I can't hear the actual like happenings in the hallway because the TVs are down,
Right.
I'm like, fine, I'll go to the anteroom of the house and listen there, like on the side. Go to the anteroom. Oh, dude comes and finds me in the damn anteroom and is like, you can't be in here in jeans. And I'm like, dude, I'm not on the floor. He's like, you can't be in here either. And I'm just like, now at this point, you're ridiculous. But
I don't
again,
have
another Republican
pearls to clutch, but I'm
the
clutching.
clutch.
I'm clutching. Like, what?
Yes.
Wow.
So like, and all this is happening during the debate, right? Like, while Democrats are standing up and talking about how important trans, children are and care for them and parental rights and all the arguments that they're making, all this is happening like at the same time when I'm trying to listen to this very important debate. They're like, now you can't even be in the anteroom. So I'm like, damn it, fine. I'm gonna leave. Good thing I had another Republican, so I knew it wasn't just me. Wasn't because it was me. Like they were being equal and fair. So I had to go up to the gallery and I watch it with the people, which is cool. I got to see how the people were responding to the debate, which was nice, right? But so I had to watch it from the gallery, though I couldn't be on the floor. So it passes out of the House, which is of course very devastating and upsetting and hurtful to those who were there to try to defeat the bill. And then we immediately go into our caucus meeting for the Democratic caucus on the Senate side because again, we're not in session yet. Like that happened in the morning. I think the debate ended at like around 11:30. We had caucus meeting at 12. And so we go into caucus meeting, we're all hot and fired up and bothered because this bill has like been rammed through the House and it has to come back to the Senate because they amended it. So they've sent it back to us because the version that we sent out said that if a doctor is doing a doctor's job, which is adhering to the medical standards of care that are provided to them, if the doctor's doing the doctor's job, then there's no criminal or civil liability involved.
Mhm.
Um, the House, however, said if a doctor that performs one of these surgeries or provides these hormones, they are criminally and civilly liable. So they they just criminalize doctors doing their job. That's the House version. So since they amended
Wow.
that and it has to come back to the Senate, and that's kind of the posture that we're in now, is that we're trying to think about like what is the strategy and how do we deal with it. And it was fresh. And so going in a caucus meeting, people are trying to talk about strategy and what do we have? Like what can we bargain with? What are the deals that we can make? I mean, it was wild. It was highly emotional because you've got people in the caucus who are just like, we got to lock down and come together on this. SB 140 is the worst thing that we've seen in a long time, and other people are like, yeah, but like, what are we willing to compromise on? Right? Like, do we say, we'll give you something else that we don't really like in order to kill this bill? Like, it was super
Mm.
fraught. And I will say, like, I'm the only gay person, I'm the only member of the community sitting in that room. And so I think I felt it was particularly difficult for me. I felt like I was listening to my friends fight over what concessions they were willing to or not willing to make on behalf of my people. Like that's
Mhm.
what it felt like. And to be fair, I felt torn too because I felt like I was trying to help people decide like what is the value of a trans youth's life? Is it worth negotiating on the weight limit for trucks? Right? Because that's something that maybe we give them. We say, okay, you can run instead of right now. I think the weight limit for a truck on our Georgia state roads is like 70,000 tons or whatever. 70,000. fill in the blank. I don't know what the next word is. You know, do we compromise and say, look, if you protect trans children, we'll let you run 90,000 on our roads? Like, is that is that the choice we're gonna make, right? Or do we say, okay, you know what? I voted against sports betting. I think sports betting is a complex and fraught issue. Um, but do we say, we'll give you sports betting if you protect trans kids' lives? Like, it just it was just a really, really hard conversation. Um, and math that doesn't work, right? Like, you can't. It's just felt impossible. And I
Yeah.
very much felt kind of in the center of that conversation of trying to determine what is the value of a trans youth's life?
Mhm.
What is it worth compromising about? And so, um, yeah, so we had that conversation. We didn't really necessarily come to conclusions. We just kind of tossed out 1,000 different ideas about how we might move forward. Went straight onto the floor, heard some like bills that didn't really make any difference in the world. Um, and then I went straight from there to hearings, my own hearing. Surprisingly, I had no idea that my bill was going to be heard. It was a complete surprise to me, but I got a hearing only on SB 264, which gives in-state tuition to people who come to this state as special immigrants. So folks from like Afghanistan, from Iraq, who've served in the military or served with the military to help us. Um, I got a hearing only for that, and like the community showed up for that, and folks from Clarkston showed up, right? My own district, like they were rolling deep to fight for this
Yeah.
bill. It was super beautiful, right? Also, wait though, in the middle of the day, I have to add, go Dens, the Paladins freaking won. In the middle of the day, they won by 1 point in the last 2 seconds of the game. And this is the first time in 43 years that we've even been in the big dance. So it was like a day of highs and lows and low lows and highs and like, yeah, it was a whole lot.
It's March Madness, right? With basketball, and this really, really changes the meaning of March Madness for me. Just
Yeah.
listening to this one day that you've had, and I don't want to get lost on this because we haven't talked about, SB 140 is certainly important, and I know there'll be more conversations to have, but I don't want to lose this moment of your bill being brought up because we haven't talked about this particular bill too much during God Ghosts and Government. We talked about a little bit of hemp, right? We talked about your stocking
A
bill,
lot
which
about
is
him.
a lot about hemp, but
Yeah.
we talked about your stocking bill, 3 years in the making, but we haven't talked about this tuition bill. And so can we just take a little moment to just have a space for it in this time, in this March
Yeah.
Madness.
Yeah. Well, and we haven't talked about it, to be fair, because I didn't introduce it until like 2 weeks ago. Like it hasn't been like this thing that I've been working on for a really long time. Like basically, I they approached me, advocates in the community kind of approached me almost after crossover day. I think that I dropped this bill even after crossover day. Like, that's how late.
Yeah, yeah, it feels
That's
because I remember seeing you on Lawmakers talking about this on crossover day.
yeah,
So
right. So let me
it's
let
very
we can
new.
verify. But it's very new. I think maybe I dropped it on crossover day or the day before crossover day. Like in other words, I didn't drop it in time for me to even expect it to get a hearing. Um, but so the bill, as you all know, many of you who've heard me know, I will only introduce bills that I can get bipartisan support on. That has been kind of my commitment right now, and that might change over time, but right now that's the kind of where I am. And so when the advocate said, we have this bill in the House, it's not moving, we can't even get a hearing. Would you consider dropping it in the Senate? Do you think it's too late? And I was like, well, it's never too late. You can drop it. Maybe it'll start the conversation, you know. But I'm like, but I have to have bipartisan support. And so
Mhm.
it took me, like, I'm not lying, I went to 10 different Republicans to try to get them to be the number two signature. Will you please sign on this? Please sign on. Like John Alberts had told me he was like all for it, but he didn't want to be the second signer on it. And I'm like, I need a Republican, like 10. Republican number 11, bless his heart, Mike Dugan. Senator Mike Dugan of Carrollton, Georgia. I got to
Okay.
him. He is a veteran. He's a veteran. He is what he calls himself a reasonable Republican. Those are his words. I explained the bill to him. He read through it and he was like, "Yeah, sounds good." And he signed number 2. And then it was like the floodgates opened. He signed number 2, and then I got like 3 or 4 other Republicans to sign on. Like it's a nice solid list because he started it. I
Wow.
mean, he's the former majority leader, so he has some real clout. And I think once people saw Mike Dugan's name on it, they dropped in. So I think I have 4 Republicans on that bill. Like it's a really strong bipartisan bill, and I think that that helped. I also had, I mean, the chairman of higher education, Billy Hickman. He is, I think, the fourth signer, so he's within the top 5 of signers. And so I guess since he signed it early on, I don't know. I don't know why he felt compelled to give me a hearing during the season. Like it's after crossover day, it's a Senate bill, it's not going to make it all the way. I don't know, but I'm grateful that he did, because it really did give us a chance to begin the conversation in earnest with
Mm,
members of the Senate about the problem that we have where in Georgia, we resettle these folks to Georgia. The federal government says, you all have been good to us. You have been our friends during war times in Afghanistan and Iraq and in Ukraine. You know, we have worked together and we want to protect you. We bring you here for safety and we drop them here in Georgia. And then we look at them and say, but you can't get in state tuition. Which, given the costs of tuition in Georgia, what we're saying is you can't come to school here in Georgia. You can't further your education here. And so
mm,
it was, man, the testimony was powerful. The stories, and it was clear as I was like kind of looking at the senators in front of me during the presentation, they had no idea that this was an issue, right? Like they
yeah,
didn't know that folks were coming here wanting to get an education here and not having that opportunity. So I'm
wow.
excited. You know, the chairman said, I look forward to working with you in next session as we kind of work on this. So I'm cautiously optimistic that we may actually see these folks who come with refugee and special visa status. We might actually see them in our public schools here in Georgia. Yeah.
Okay. This is exciting. And that's why I wanted to make space. As you said, it's important to begin the conversation. So and also I'm excited that you got that bipartisan support. I am a Georgia native, so Carrollton is right next door to my hometown of Franklin, Georgia, aka Heard County. So yeah, so I am pleasantly surprised, and I'm glad that you got the support.
What else you got for me?
I want to know it all because here's the thing. Each week I try to make space in asking the God question, right? We do the reflection and I ask you where you see God and all of these things, and that still remains for me because I think that's important. We have this spiritual component of this platform, and in all of these relationships, you just named the highs and the lows and the other lows. And it was a lot of ebb and flow happening on just
Yeah.
Thursday, right? And we're starting to head to Sine Die. And I always lead with a genuine curiosity of where God is showing up for you in this space because it can, outside looking in, it feels it's challenging for me to hear. And you're also
Yeah.
having to stand at the crux of many issues. So I'm very, very curious about that and I have a deep wonder, especially while standing in that room with the caucus hearing. Like, where has God shown up for you this week?
Yeah, thank you for that. You know, because I know you're going to ask me this question every week. I think my my heart and spirit is always kind of looking like, what am I going to say? So I'm looking for God in a way that
Mm,
maybe I wouldn't be as attuned to if this question weren't going to be asked. A couple of places. So um, as hard as this week has been in terms of the attacks on trans children, one of the unique roles that my office, my actual physical space, has been able to play during this is that we are the safe haven for folks to come and celebrate when we defeat bills. Because remember, we defeated the Don't Say Gay bill early on. So when there's celebration, my office, 321 and CLOB, is where folks come um, to celebrate. And it's also the place where people come to grieve. And so when the bill was heard in committee in the House committee, I guess that would have been on Wednesday, after the bill passed out of committee, we had 30, 40 people come to our office to grieve. And, we like to help people grieve with sweet treats. So we had donuts and and other sweet treats to help provide comfort. That's probably problematic in some way, but nonetheless,
we
we
won't debate that side of things. So,
yeah. But we had, I think we probably had like 5 boxes of pastries that one of our friends, actually former Representative Rebecca Mitchell, she brought those to our office because she knew that's where people would come.
mm,
And to be able to be in that space. I was supposed to be in a committee meeting and I chose not to go to it. There was nothing for us to vote on. And so I was aware of that too. But I just stayed for an hour as people cried and um,
mm,
ate pastries and shared stories and talked about strategy and
mm,
disappointment and hopes, like where we could still try to stop it, right? Like um, and is as hard as that is a gift, and I think that is where God shows up, right?
mm.
And the fact that there was a staffer whose senior boss, like so a young staffer, her boss brought her down to my office because she knew because the young staffer was having a hard time, was just very emotionally. She's like, I didn't know people could be, so hard hearted and turn deaf ears so clearly. you know that senior staffer brought that younger staffer down to my office because she knew that I would be there and that
Mm,
would be a safe place where that young woman could process her grief. And so I feel like we're providing a sanctuary, a safe place, a haven, a place where God's spirit and comfort is and abides. And so for me, those have been the God moments. They've happened in those gathering spaces, and I will say, like, Shritha, I feel like God is like constantly working on me, even in the
mm.
midst of all this too, because I listen to my colleagues stand up in the House, people that I consider friends or people that I
Yeah.
know well, who were Republicans who stood up and said, and voted for the bill, right? And stood up and offered their explanations for the bill. And I see Carden Summers every day, right? And we work on other things together, like we're hemp buddies, right? Um, and he's the sponsor of this bill. And so I feel like God is kind of constantly working on me to make sure, like, because a part of me like wants to hate him, right? Like
Mm,
a part of me wants to be like, damn it, Carden, I have told you over and over again. And I've watched people tell you over and over again that a kid is going to get hurt. Some child is going to die if we pass this bill. We've told you, and you still continue to push it. And I just keep hearing God and like God is working on me to not have that kind of hate in my heart and to keep building the relationships, um continuing to see him as the complex human being that he is. The last thing I'll say about this, because obviously it's quite emotional for me, is that
mm,
every single Republican in the Senate voted for that bill. Every single one. Russ Goodman, who was a dear friend who I visited during the summer to go to his blueberry farm, to Brian Strickland, who was the second signer on most of my bills. Um, every single one voted for that bill. And so I feel like every day God continues to work on me to help me see that people are more than their policy, right?
Mm.
Um, and that their policy, I cannot let that define the totality of who they are. And that's been hard work. It's been especially hard this week, but I think it's important and healing work for me to maintain my humanity because if I let myself hate these people, um, I won't be the person that I feel like I'm supposed to be, the person that I want to be in the world.
Yeah, yeah. That's that's hard. I mean, one, I don't envy you at all. And I say that in the most loving, most loving way because we all have these, challenging moments. But you are holding a space in which there is deep work. And this is why the question comes up every week because it does not stop. The intentionality, shout out to Kathy Roberts for coming up with the name God, Goats, and Government. It it just is. You can't separate any of the pieces of it's not just your identity. Excuse me. It's not just your identity, but I mean, this really is a part of who you are and how you show it shows up in the policies that you support. It shows up in the relationships and how you're able to help others navigate this space. And so I really think it's beautiful that you
Mm,
are able to create a sacred space um, at the Capitol, in your office, rather, for others to come in a time when they may not feel safe, they may not feel supported, but you still have this ability because of the searching and the seeking that you do to create this sacred space for others to come and just be, just be.
yeah, yeah. So, well, thank you for that. I sometimes don't envy my own life, right? Or it's just it's
Oh no.
hard. I don't know how to phrase that quite right, but it is it's certainly a challenge. But it's somebody asked me, are you happy being in the Senate? And
Mm,
I'm like, I don't think happy is the word, but it definitely
mm,
feels like the right place. I
mm,
feel very clear that I am where I am supposed to be right now, doing exactly what I'm supposed to do. And so that feels good, right? It's just like when I was first ordained as a priest, one of the first couple of weeks I was handing out bread into somebody's hand, and I felt like I had
mm,
this like out of body experience just briefly where I could see myself doing the action, and it felt so right. Like I could see myself putting the bread in somebody's hand, and I could see my stole, and just I saw the whole thing, and it was just like, and this is well with my soul. This feels
mm,
right. Um, and I think that's how I feel about being in the Senate right now. It's hard. There are tears, obviously, that get shed, and it's a challenge, but it feels deeply right. Um,
mm.
and that's a blessing. I don't know that everybody can say that about themselves. So um, I do want to note, so we've spent a lot of time talking about my bill, 260, 246, 264. And we spent a lot of time talking about, I got it right, it's 264. Um,
Every time we so 64,
I know
yes. But
I get the numbers wrong most of the time, but I'm pretty sure
it's
that's right.
gonna be correct in the episode notes. So
That's what matters. I know we spent a lot of time talking about my bill and talking about SB 140. And some people might be like, are y'all not doing anything else? Well, we're almost not doing anything else. So the House is just moving extraordinarily slow. The Senate, we have heard like 90 House bills at this point. The Senate has heard, I mean, the House has heard
mm,
nine Senate bills. I think actually, let me get the numbers right. It's the actual numbers are we have heard 60 House bills,
mhm.
60, 60. The House has heard nine Senate bills.
What's
So
happening over
we're
there?
not
I
doing
mean,
the house ain't doing that. What's happening over there is the house is spending time in culture wars doing shit like this, where they're like attacking trans children, and they're having to spend hours of debate on the floor about this issue, and therefore not hearing other bills of import. That is what's happening. So there's kind of like, I'm not wrong. Like, the reason why we lift up these other two bills is because there actually isn't a whole lot happening. And the House bills, I will say, the House bills that we have been pushing through on the
mhm,
Senate floor have not been of great consequence, right? They are not particularly controversial.
mhm.
They do some tweaking, they help people, but so if people listen to this pod and they're like, "How come you don't talk about any other bills or any other policy?" Well, it's because ain't shit happening right now, so that's why.
There you have it, folks. This is where we are. And remind us how many where are we? Because Asani Die is approaching. Just in
It
like
is.
and
We're on day 35. There are only 40 days, so the house has got like 5 days to catch the hell up, or maybe they won't. Maybe they just gonna. And I will say, in the house's defense, we sent them a bunch of really horrible trash bills. So there is that.
well, well.
Like, remember we talked earlier about like criminal deform that's happening? Like, all that stuff from my friend Senator Randy Robertson of the 28th District or 29th,
I,
all that stuff that he did, we sent them trash. And so maybe that's what's happening, is they're trying to like sort through all the trash to find something
I
decent.
just I don't uh, I just made the connection because we are right now, Church of the Common Ground, which is a part of the Diocese of Atlanta, Episcopal Diocese of Atlanta. But right now, we're in Lent, and I just made, and maybe this has happened. I've had this epiphany before, but when you talk about the 40 days and the correlation of Lent and also being in session, like this 40-day path that you guys are on, like I mean, it does not end well, per se, as the story as it goes for Lent. But I mean, I want Sunny One Sunny died to have a much better ending. I mean, we get on the other side of it, the resurrection. But my goodness, like what
Yeah.
I want this narrative to change. I mean, it is I see the cyclical nature of it because on this platform, in this space, you're constantly trying to find like hard truths every time, no matter what. But it is this shift towards positivity. It's almost therapeutic, right? But my goodness, I mean, I appreciate you taking ownership. I mean, they weren't your bad bills, but the Senate is tossing up some some things this session that is slowing down the process. So I appreciate you naming what it is in this particular space.
Yeah. Yeah, and the only other bill I will name out loud that we're dealing with is House Bill 520, which is the Mental Health
Mhm,
Omnibus Bill. It also, so it came to us from the House, almost unanimous. I think they only had three
mhm,
dissenting votes on it. Um, I've been on the subcommittee that's been looking at that bill. It, as the chairwoman says, it still needs, quote, a lot of work. I don't really know what that means to her, but I do. I'm not clear, but what I do know is that you should not try to email me at my Senate email right now, because I am being email bombed constantly about this bill, like to the point where I can't see other emails, because like the conspiracy theorists have gotten involved with it, and it's a whole thing. Like, the room was packed for the subcommittee hearings where people with signs to like vote no on HB 520, and uh,
yeah.
it's like a whole thing. It's a whole thing. So that bill, however, I think that we will get that out of committee this coming week, and we'll bring something to the floor that I think will still be good for the people of Georgia and continue to advance opportunities for people to get into the mental health field and to get access to mental health treatment. So That's the other bill I forgot that is substantial that we're working on, and it's coming, and it's still complicated because people
Yeah.
think that I don't know what people think, but they think bad things about it.
Wow. Just look. I'm just gonna breathe that out. All the things are happening, and as you bring up this mental health piece, it is somewhat pushing me towards my favorite part of this program, this conversation, which is the barnyard update. And nothing just brings good vibes like a good goat story. And so our barnyard update, I'm excited, excuse me, I'm excited to get into it because I saw a photo of you and Senator Nikki Merritt, and you guys had a special guest at the Capitol this week.
We did. We had the tiniest goat I've ever seen in my life. A baby goat that showed up as an emotional support animal because it had been a hard week. It is so adorable. Sharitha, I've spent a lot of time around goats, as you know. I have my own
True.
goats. I have seen goats birthed. Like, this is like not a thing that I'm unfamiliar with.
Yeah.
But this goat that came, this little kid, is the tiniest. It's like the size of a cat. I have never Goats are not born that size. Like, normally they are twice as big, but this is like the
What?
tiniest, cutest, cuddliest goat ever. It was awesome.
It looks like a stuffed animal. It's that cute. Like it could be
Yeah.
a so
It didn't look
for
real. So somebody sent me a picture of it, Sharitha, and was like, "Hey, there's a goat on campus," and I was like, "That's a stuffed
that's not
animal." Like, I didn't
that's
believe it.
well,
It
well
does.
you
It looked like the pictures of the Bible, or like the illustrated Bible, where Jesus is
yes.
like holding. That's what it looks like, but smaller.
It does, and I invite our listeners to go and check out the photo. Is on your page at Camp for Georgia. You can see this photo of the cutest little goat, little baby, sweet little baby goat. And you're
So
holding it, and
sweet.
I'm just like, so one, this I don't know if this fully frees up the request that I put in to have your goats come to the Capitol. I know you somewhat kind of put that towards that request towards Trina making that happen. So she may be a bit relieved that a goat made it up there. So, but I think the people, because we've shared this photo on your social, and one of your followers, Elaine Hudson, commented. She said, I won't tell Georgia her mama is crushing on another goat, but I do think it's time you bring the stars of God, goats, and government to the Capitol. So the request is still out there, Senator Jackson. It's still
All
out
right.
there.
Well, we've got what 5 legislative days to try to work that out, but my goats are not nearly as cute when you compare to that tiny little teacup. Actually, that's the name of the goat. It's like Teacup. It's super cute. Yeah. Teacup, right? It's so cute. Anyway, but I will continue to work on my wife to see if we can't get like at least Mississippi up here,
Okay.
to the Capitol so folks can meet the true stars of God, goats, and government, my goats.
Yeah. Excellent, excellent. Well, listen, I
But shout out to Dr. Michelle. I will say shout out to Dr. Michelle Al and to the farmer Cam
yes,
who made that happen, who brought that goat on campus. It was perfect timing. It was perfectly great,
yeah,
and I'm really grateful for the role that animals can play in our lives in terms of our
yeah.
health and well-being. So yeah,
Yeah, deep gratitude, deep gratitude. See, to me, that was also a God moment. See, it's all intertwined, right?
that's
There
true.
you go.
That's true.
There you go. Well, listen, I'm going to honor your time because I recognize that, especially this time of session, it can be draining just in general. And I know it's been a really, really challenging week to say the least. And so I always want you to know that I am deeply grateful that you sit down and hold space in this way and that you're willing to share not only what's going on under the gold dome, but your experience, like your true experience. And it's one of the things I appreciate about your social media and how you engage with your constituents. You are sharing not just your truth, but like what's really happening, and giving folks a true inside perspective. So thank you, because you don't have to, right? So I think that's
Yeah.
what that authenticity that you hold. So we appreciate it. And as always, I make space. Is there anything else that you would like to share?
Just my words of gratitude to you as well, Sharitha J. I will say very briefly, I was on Rose Scott's A Closer Look this week, and she asked me a question that was kind of personal, and because she's such a good interviewer, I just answered it and didn't really think about the fact that I was saying something a little personal on the air, and that's how I feel about you. You just create such a great environment where it's easy for me to say what's not just happening under the gold dome, but what's also happening inside of my heart. And so, thank
Mhm.
you for being such a great host, such a great interviewer who really creates a space for me to be able to tell my truth in a way that that feels right and good. So, thank you.
All right. You're welcome, Senator Jackson. Y'all, bringing out my Southern accent. Y'all, it's been another fantastic episode of God, Goats, and Government. Until next time.
Be easy, y'all. Like, subscribe, and please share this podcast with other people in your orbits. Thanks, guys.